our next guest is undoubtedly one of the best social entrepreneurs in South Africa, 𝗏𝗏 Robertson. He's the co-founder and CEO of Dragonize, an extremely innovative waste management company. They've won numerous awards over the past few years and are making a difference in thousands of South Africans' lives on a daily basis. 𝗏𝗏, I absolutely love your approach to social entrepreneurship. Really enjoyed watching your journey over the past few years and really appreciate you joining us today.
Pleasure to be here, Joshua. Yeah, he's really hyped us up, so I hope I can live up to his expectations.
I'm sure you'll blow them away. Cool. So just starting off easy, can you give us a short overview of what Dragonize does and why it's important?
Super. Yeah, so as Joshua mentioned, my name is 𝗏𝗏 Robertson. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Dragonize. So we are a recycling solution, and what we perform is recycling services. We have two business models, one in paid or upper income areas, and then a free model that focuses on lower income areas. And for both of them, it's about making recycling accessible, and especially with the lower income side, we've worked on a new type of model where we integrate informal waste collectors into our model, where we set up decentralized recycling hubs in these communities and make our service free to residents who wouldn't recycle before. And so, our whole business is about making zero waste services accessible, inclusive, and rewarding, which is our virtual currency called 𝗲𝗏𝗍𝗧, which residents earn each time they perform, the recycling activity. And yeah, that is where we're at right now, and that's our focus.
Amazing, thanks for that. So, I think you're a great example of an African entrepreneur building solutions to African problems. And I know on your website it specifically states recycling for South Africa. And it seems as if you've never really been interested in building a platform which you can take to the States or to Europe, for example. Can you just elaborate on the importance of local entrepreneurs stepping up to build solutions that solve local problems, as opposed to just going out and building solutions because you think it's nice to have, or you think that some big international player will come in and kind of buy you out along the way?
No, it's really important because we have very special problems. And, we have to build for our context is a phrase we use quite a lot in our company, building for our context, because our context is unique. We often speak about, challenges that face South Africa. And so, yeah, I think for us, it was about trying to rectify what's been done in the recycling space, which is something that's usually just adopted from first world countries. If you see the way recycling is generally done. But we have different stakeholders in our value chain. We have different users in our value chain. And so it was so important for us to develop and design according to that. And, at the beginning, we didn't know about it as well. We had to learn it. So as we developed our solution through various trial and error, and, Joshua, you saw that as well while we were at the venture incubation program together. We had to do a few pivots in our business model as we learned what's important to our users, what's important in our country, and what's going to work here. You can easily just take a concept and try and adopt it, or adapt it really. But at the end of the day, it needs to work for your users, for your context, and for your location as well.
Perfect. So just going on to that, I think we sometimes struggle to find problems which are actually right in front of us. What would you recommend to aspiring entrepreneurs to be able to identify and understand both the problems and potential opportunities which are actually around them?
Cool. So yeah, I think I'll answer this through an example, perhaps, using ourselves again. We're currently in the recycling space, and looking at zero waste solutions. But where we started was a totally different area. We started with 3D printing. So myself, my business partner, we came from a software background, and we studied information systems. And part of our journey and getting into the entrepreneurship field was excitement about a concept, which was 3D printing. And this was, I would say, around 2014. Where we learned about 3D printing, and we were so excited. We wanted to build a business around 3D printing. This is going to be a big thing in the future. And that's how we got started in the journey. But as we went through the journey, so we went from wanting to use 3D printing, 3D printers to design 3D designs of people's 2D designs. From there, we went to pivot about actually using plastic waste to make 3D printing material. And through that pivots and research, we got to learn what's the real big problem. And through my own research was at that time, only 3% of South Africans were recycling. The amount of plastic waste that's being developed around the world and not being recycled was quite high. And so, we started in a totally different way, and we got to learn about what's the actual more pressing issue. At the same time, it's also about aligning problems with your interests and your passion. For me, I've always been an environmentalist, champion for animals. And so that was where my personal, interest lied, my personal passion. My skill sets were in software. And yeah, at the end of the day, I managed to find a sweet spot essentially of my passions and my skill sets, which was software. And again, just to add context, we entered the recycling space as a potential software solution. All we wanted to do was make recycling more accessible to residents. We wanted to incentivize them to recycle. So we came in as a solution for existing recycling companies to try and get them to use our solution, but that didn't happen, and they kind of forced us to get in the recycling space ourselves. So to bring in our own vision, we had to get our hands dirty and do operations, which is always an interesting thing because for software ideas, it's always about not really getting your hands dirty, just building the tech. But in some instances, when the ecosystem or the existing infrastructure isn't working, you have to go down and get your hands dirty and sometimes build that value chain that you want yourself. So, the problems, I would say, make sure it aligns to something that you truly care about on a personal side, because that's going to drive you to solve it. And then secondly, make sure that it's also something that's a big problem, make sure that it's impacting a lot of people. So that your market is really big and you can obviously scale your solution to whatever it is. And yeah, looking locally as well, there's things that connects internationally, the things that's only local. And in South Africa, we are a nation of complainers. There's a lot of things to complain about. So when I hear people leaving South Africa, I'm like looking for opportunity, I am very confused because I see all our problems as potential solutions. And so, in every community, there's a problem that needs to be solved. So finding problems, I say in our country is quite easy. It's up to you as an entrepreneur as what size problem you want to pick. And that will obviously determine your challenge because there's a lot of it.
Amazing. I absolutely love that. And I think it's coming to light more and more. I mean, you see a lot of, young, highly educated people leaving South Africa, as you say, seeking opportunities, but these opportunities are on our doorstep, and it takes people like us that understand the current situation and the context to actually go and solve those problems, because nobody else is necessarily going to solve them for us. So got to stay alert of those problems around us. So Dragonize is obviously a for-profit company which is focused on creating both environmental and social change. You're playing in the people, planet, profit model. Which of these three elements were you most focused on in the beginning, and has this changed over time? And when I say the beginning, maybe once you decided on the recycling version, not the initial beginning.
I would say the initial beginning was very much focused on planet, to be honest. Our drive, or at least from a personal perspective, my drive was very much, environmentally driven. And, the fight of climate change, seeing the impacts of climate change on nature, on the planet. So it was very much, and as well as the impact of waste on the planet. So for me, it was very much environmental and planet-focused drive. But as I got into, solving the problem, at the end of the day, it's a human-created problem, and so it shifted entirely to people at the end of it, because if you can't get the people on board, you can't obviously make the changes necessary. Profit's obviously important for a business. It's probably the least of the three items for us as a company. Because if you don't have a planet, you're not going to have people, and you're not going to have people who can give you the profit. So our theory is that by focusing on impact and planet and people, the result is profit. At the end of the day, depending that's what you want out of it. But if you can impact or solve an issue that's going to impact millions of people, it's easier to make a profit than starting off with focusing on making a profit entirely. That's at least my theory. But again, for us, it's primarily people today, especially with what we do in the informal space. So after about a year of operating, we got to realize about the role of the informal waste collectors in the South African economy. And if you don't know, research says there's about 90,000 informal waste collectors in our country. They're responsible for collecting up to 80% of all paper and packaging waste that we recycle. And they serve government up to 750 million rand a year from landfill assets. And so, for us, it was, why are we not working with this big market? They're already doing the work. We're trying to do the same work. Let's work together. And that's how the whole integration and process started. But what came from that was we started working with these guys, and you need to start thinking about so much more than just your business and operations. It's like it was another dimension of that we had to think about for our business, because all of a sudden you're working with people who might be on substance abuse, who might not have a bank card, who might not know how to work a smartphone. And so automatically, we had to start training the guys on how to use a smartphone, how to deal with customers, assisting them opening bank accounts, and if they need any other assistance, providing that. And so, the business is very people focused, and I think that's the best way to look at it, because you can't get people on board, you're not going to get the impact or the behavior change that you want to see, really.
Amazing. I love that story. It's a great one. I'm sure it will stick with you for the rest of your life as well, which makes it even better. I know we are a little bit over, but if you have time for one more slightly more personal question, just wanted to find out what you consider one of the biggest leaps of faith you've taken during your journey. If I remember correctly, you sold your car at one stage to keep going, but I imagine
I did. Forgot about that.
But there may be a few others as well. What would you say the kind of biggest leap of faith you took was?
A lot, to be honest. I think the decision firstly to leave my job was a big one. Coming from the Cape Flats, I didn't come from a rich background or anything like that. So I was in this position where most people were envying what I had in life, being able to work overseas, travel, and leaving all of that for what I wanted to do was the biggest leap of faith. It was a big risk, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it at the time, because I was young, didn't have much responsibilities. So I'd say that was the first big one. Is just you worked, studied for 4 years, worked, so you put in quite a lot of effort to get this job, and all of a sudden you're just saying goodbye to that safety. And then starting having to start them over, because now you have no salary, you're having to sell your vehicle to buy a work vehicle. You're just committing so much, and every act you do is a leap of faith. So like I said, it would be difficult to say one, because I think it would have to be the start, to be honest. Just saying goodbye to that past life was the biggest one for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we'll link to your personal and your company profiles, just so that everybody that's tuned in can do a little bit more research, look into the impact you guys are creating, potentially even sign up for the platform if they are interested. But thank you so much for joining us. It was super insightful, very inspiring, and looking forward to continue following your guys' journey. It's definitely been one of my favorite startups to follow over the past 3 or 4 years since we met. So you've got all of my support, and I'm sure the same for everybody that's tuned in.
Thanks, Joshua. Thanks for having me. It's been fun. And yeah, reach out if you guys have any questions. I'm not very responsive, but if you have questions, I'll try my best to get back to you.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much, Chad. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. Bye-bye.